Hello there good people and welcome back to the channel. If you have seen our review about the Samsung Fold 5 back at the end of last year, you might remember that I have been on a super old iPhone 11 Pro for, well, way too long. And since I wanted to bring our in-depth smartphone reviews from the website to the channel, it's been time to see what else is available in today's smartphone market. After the Fold 5, I switched over to the Samsung S24 Ultra and used that one as my daily driver for a few weeks. I had it with me on trips to New York and in early 2024 to CES in Vegas. And especially as a content creator, I was very happy with its camera. So naturally, I wanted to see what the 2024 iteration could bring to the table. I know that one has been out for a while now, so this is more of a long-term experience video, but I will also compare the massive smartphone to what is available right now in this flagship segment of the market. Both phones are quite similar in terms of hardware and core specifications. We did get an upgrade to Qualcomm's latest smartphone SoC, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, in its slightly higher clocked Samsung exclusive 4 Galaxy variant. Alongside the snappy CPU, Samsung adds 12 GB of RAM and the display gets a slight bump in resolution. The rest of the spec sheet is pretty close to the 2023 predecessor. But again, we will not only compare the 2024 Ultra to its in-house competition, but since the release we have been able to review almost everything when it comes to high-end smartphones, and most of them come with similarly impressive specs. While we are still working on our reviews for the Motorola Edge 50 Ultra and Sony's Xperia 1.6, we have already tested the iPhone 15 Pro Max, OnePlus 12, Xiaomi 14 Ultra, Google's Pixel 8 Pro, the Honor Magic 6 Pro, Oppo's Find X7 Ultra and the Vivo X100 Pro. And I will use the data from our written reviews to put the S24's results in perspective. If you want to learn more about any of the competing flagships, follow the links in the description below. When it comes to overall styling and build quality, we really have to give it to Samsung here. The S24 Ultra feels and looks simply incredible, and while the S23 has also been a great phone in this regard, the update for this year really takes it up a notch in my opinion. The smooth titanium frame with Corning's Gorilla Armor Glass covering both the front and the back feels almost too good in your hands to put a case on it. It is a pretty large and heavy phone, but in that special way that makes it feel dense and very premium. But you really have to be aware that you will have to stretch your fingers quite a bit to reach everything, especially if you have smaller hands. Apart from being extremely durable, the Armor Glass is also really good at reducing reflections, which further helps to focus on your content, especially when being out and about. The Ultra is also certified as dust and waterproof with an IP68 rating, but you would not want to take it below 1.5 meters and limit bathing time to 30 minutes to keep your precious smartphone safe and functional. With its USB-C port, the S24 is solidly middle of the road when it comes to the flagship competition. While both the iPhone 15 and Xiaomi 14 Ultra offer the faster 3.2 Gen 2 standard, this will probably only make a real difference if you transfer a lot of files regularly from external SSDs. Apart from that, Samsung offers pretty much everything when it comes to modern connection standards, with its own desktop implementation DeX, NFC, an ultra wideband chip and Bluetooth 5.3. The latter feels a little bit like an oversight, since some competing flagship phones are already available with the newer 5.4 standard. On the software side of things, Samsung continues to impress with its 7-year promise of regular updates, which can only be matched by Google with its Pixel series. And while Samsung's Android implementation with its own One UI is certainly quite functional, it's not my favorite styling across the competition. But this is of course highly subjective, and in general everything is very easy to find and the whole software experience is incredibly snappy. In stark contrast to the S23, the new Ultra was also heavily marketed as the AI phone. And while there are quite a few very useful translation applications or some additional AI-powered retouching options in the Photos app, which I tried briefly, I have to be honest with you guys here, I never used any of them extensively and also never felt the need for them. But if you own an S24 and use any of the new AI functions, please let me know. Did I miss out? In terms of Wi-Fi, general signal quality and GPS reliability, the S24 also delivers as it should, being a proper flagship phone. And if you want to get into more details for these particular aspects, once again, give our much more in-depth written article a read. Because I would rather spend some more time talking about the cameras, since I mostly use my smartphones as portable content machines and of course my primary communication devices. When I picked up the S23 at the end of last year, I really thought the 10x zoom was a gimmick I would never ever use, until I got to New York. And man, it's really quite something to be able to get incredibly close to things with your smartphone. I had quite a bit of fun zooming in on interesting buildings to get those really graphical shots, and the files you get hold it together quite well, even with my usual filters and color grades. The update performs relatively similar, even though exactly the zoom lens is the only sensor that has been upgraded with more pixels and surface area, while the optical zoom has been cut in half. But to be quite honest, the overall quality experience is pretty much the same, which is certainly impressive. And once again, it's just so refreshing when a device allows you to do creative things you would otherwise not be able to do. When it comes to the main shooter and the wide-angle lens, the S24 shares its sensors with its 2023 predecessor. And the overall quality is still very good, even though the rest of the competition did improve quite a bit here, since phones like the Oppo Find and Vivo X100 offer a 1-inch sensor in their flagships. The weakest sensor in the S24's Ultra lineup is definitely the 3x zoom. It simply cannot hold a candle both when it comes to the rest of the camera system and what is available in the competition. And while the Ultra delivered without question when it comes to landscape and urban shots, I found skin tones to be a little off and very hard to correct and grade with the apps I use. Again, this is very subjective and your mileage will vary greatly in this regard. Should you be interested in a more pixel level comparison for most of the phones I mentioned in the beginning, one of my colleagues from the website put them through their photographic paces for all of your pixel peeping needs. Of course, you can also shoot video with the S24 and the quality is absolutely solid, with recording options up to 8K and frame rates between 24 and 120 FPS. I rarely shoot video on a phone since, well, I have other cameras for that, but if you are into it, please enjoy our sample footage shot in 4K and 60 FPS in the phone's high bitrate mode. Alright good people, let's talk display, and boy, this one is pretty amazing. It is quite a bit flatter than the S23, which I like from a handling point of view, and being an LTPO panel, the high-res screen can dynamically change its refresh rate from 1 Hz to conserve power up to 120 Hz for smooth visuals and animations. In regards to brightness, we did see quite some improvements against the predecessor with a pretty solid 1300 nits measured with an all-white screen, pretty bonkers 2700 nits with dark and light areas evenly distributed, and simply insane almost 3000 nits for peak HDR brightness, which marks best-in-class numbers in this regard. Samsung is also able to take the lead with the highest measured base PWM frequency across all flagships with 480 Hz. But phones like the Oppo or the Honor Magic 6 Pro can go up to more than 4000 Hz under ideal conditions, making those potentially easier on the eyes if you are sensitive towards flickering screens. While you will hardly use your phone for color critical work, and even for me as a full-time content creator of sorts, I did not really notice any real problems. Color reproduction is not that great when looking at our measurements. Delta E's for the Samsung are the highest in our comparison group, and while the S23 was able to cover almost the full DCI-P3 color space, the successor only goes slightly beyond sRGB. This probably won't be a deal breaker, but given that we are dealing with a very expensive high-end phone here, it's a clear oversight, especially compared to the competition. In the performance department, the S24 is positioned quite well once again, but to be quite honest with you guys, all of these smartphones are incredibly fast, probably faster than you would actually need. And during everyday usage, for example, I did not notice any considerable advantage of the S24 against its direct predecessor. I'm also not terribly big on mobile games, but in our wildlife benchmark runs, the S24 secures one of the top spots in our database. If you want to dive deeper into our results and are interested in more numbers from a whole host of very different benchmarks, again, you know what to do. And you can find the links to our review on the website in the description below. Battery life for the massive phone is also solid with around 19 hours in our standardized Wi-Fi test with the display set to 150 nits. Of course, this is very far from your usual everyday use, but it gives us a chance to compare the S24 to the competition. And again, the Ultra runs long enough to get you through 1 or 2 days of even pretty intense use. But the competition is also able to keep up or even outpace the Samsung, as is shown by our results from the Honor Magic 6 Pro, for example. Alright folks, it's time to wrap this up for today. The Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra is a true flagship to the core, with the fastest SoC currently available, a simply impressive display for everyday use and all sorts of media consumption, and the build quality to match. That said, the competition isn't sleeping, and most other brands can keep up or sometimes even outclass the S24, so it's very hard to pick a clear winner in this high-end segment of the market. And from a pure user experience perspective, the difference between the 2024 version and the S23 Ultra from last year is also barely noticeable, and I would go as far as to say if you can get a good deal on the S23, it might be worth getting that one over its more recent sibling. But let me know what you think, sound off in the comments below. This should also be it for today. Do not forget to hit that like and sub button on your way out. Thanks a ton for watching, and I cannot wait to see you all in the next one. Take care.